Please subscribe to help you and your motorcycle perform better.
Aussie Dave, what the heck are you doing here at Buttonwillow Raceway, racing in the AFM?
I thought about that while I was out there racing here. It's we're a week out from our first official MotoAmerica test, so throwing some laps down, trying some things and make sure we're ready to go, really.
You've raced in MotoAmerica, AMA, DMG, you've been at this for years. You're still competitive. Once you said, I'm going to keep riding the bike until I find somebody better. I think maybe you accomplished that.
Oh, hang on. One race doesn't mean that just yet. A club day. No, I pretty much come here knowing that he would beat me this weekend. So we just wanted to try some things and test some things, and hopefully I'm still the top dog on the team. But what can I say? He's going good.
You're running some actual superbike parts. This is a real superbike. Tell us about the parts and things that you're doing.
You know, obviously with the rules we can build chassis-wise full superbike stuff, and it's pretty open. You know, we manufacture a lot of our own parts. Yeah, it's good to see him on track and doing the lap times that Jayson did today.
What's going to happen between now and the start of the MotoAmerica season?
Just a lot more preparation, basically. Just preparation's, you know, important. So when you get to the race, you're ready. So not really much testing, just got the official MotoAmerica test, and then after that it's building spare parts and just trying to be ready.
All right, Jayson, you've won plenty of races here at Buttonwillow. You've won the championship on a previous bike. Now you're on a new bike. So tell us about the change.
So, biggest change, obviously we've gone from red to black as far as Honda to Suzuki. So far, so good. Loving the bike, loving the team. Definitely a big step in a different direction. But like I said, every time we get in the bike, learn something new, and loving it so far. I guess, like you said, we have some more quote-unquote racy parts, and the biggest thing is the electronics. Getting used to different ways of riding the bike, having to kind of break some old habits, especially with my rear brake use. So learning to ride a little bit differently, but overall, if it's faster, and that's what we're here to do. So again, trying to learn my best, and we're going fast, having a good time, and we'll get there.
So you did like a 43 flat in the race?
Yeah.
How was that compared to your previous times here?
So that is my fastest time I've ever done here at Buttonwillow. I know that we can get into those mid-42s fairly easily. We just got to put some good laps together and have some clear laps. But so far, so good. I mean, it definitely felt like I could do those 43s, the low 43s, all the time. Felt like it was very repeatable.
What kind of percentage were you pushing out of 100?
Definitely the first few laps were like 95. I was trying to go, really trying to get a gap, and then after that was more cruise control. So I know that we can safely do those mid-42s without changing much, so confident. I'd love to come back here at some point halfway through the season and see what we can do.
You mentioned with the electronics that you're tuning the bike more for corners, for lean angle and such like that, rather than a setup for the whole track. Talk
Yes.
a little bit about that.
So the nice thing about these electronics is we can adjust them to be more track specific, as far as I can have it different in one corner than the next corner. That has pros and cons, so the biggest thing we're working on is trying to find a setup that works for everywhere, as far as it's more lean angle based and speed based, rather than, oh, I'm going to have it set up for turn 1 and then a different setup for turn 2. That way, when it's more lean angle based, it's easier to translate to other tracks, other circuits. We're not starting from zero. We have a good base map, and that's what we've been building most of the weekend, so I think we're in a good spot.
You've raced in MotoAmerica, and so you've raced the Dunlops. You've been racing Pirellis here at a club race. Give us some idea of what the difference is in the tire and how it behaves.
The biggest thing I noticed going between Dunlop to Pirelli, the Pirellis give me a lot more feel, as far as I have a better sense of what's going on the road beneath me. The Dunlops, I think, they're just different tires in general. They feel a lot more stiff, so I can push the front pretty hard on the Dunlops, probably harder than I can on the Pirellis. On the flip side of that, they don't give me quite as much feel. So, you know, everything has pros and cons. I can't really say which one I prefer. I think they're both great tires. it's just two different ways of riding a bike, really. And I always love my Pirellis. It's nice to get back on them when I can, and yeah, I'm thankful for the help.
All right, so what's going to happen between now and the start of the MotoAmerica season for you?
So we have a preseason test at Dakota coming up in about a week and a half. So we're pretty much loading everything up into this rig now. Dave's going to drive it out to Texas. I'll meet him there, and we'll get the season started.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
You're out here essentially testing.
Yep.
What have you discovered about this new bike that you're riding? Because you were with him when he rode other bikes.
Yep. Compared to where we were at before, the electronics are so much more advanced with this bike, and then the bike itself is well developed. So there's been a lot of people that have put input into it. So there's a lot of information to be able to go with to try to get a decent setup, and the bike itself is already a decent setup. So just fine tuning it for what Jayson wants.
What suspension are you running?
It's all Öhlins. As for valving specs and stuff like that, I don't actually know, just because the bike's new to us. But it's all Öhlins. This is our second weekend on the bike. So we did an initial run through probably about a month ago at Chuckwalla, just to see if Jayson even gelled with the bike, if Dave even liked us in the first place, just to see how everybody got along, and then just to see could Jayson go okay on a Suzuki. So, and then everything worked out well there. So then it progressed to being out here today or this weekend.
So he's gone, what, at least a second faster than he did previously?
Yes. So it's just, I mean, and there's lots of bits and pieces to that. So that's, suspension, tires, bike. Again, the electronics are a lot more advanced than what we were using before. And then Nick's pretty decent at tuning. I don't want to say pretty decent. Nick's very decent at being able to tune those electronics. So you can get more out of the rider, more out of the bike.
The suspension came as it was.
Yep.
How did it come in terms of the range that you needed for him?
Luckily, it was pretty close. And then what's the other thing and it's probably pretty common, is the spring rates where Dave uses going two different directions. Dave uses a very close valving spec to what we used, and then the spring rates on them are very close to what the previous bike used. So looking at it right on the outset, we knew we were in a ballpark. If the bike, people had ridden the bike before us, so we knew the bike should work. And then we got on and just started fine-tuning from there. Some spring changes, that was about the extent of it, and then some geometry, changing how the bike sat, just to give Jayson more the feel of what he was looking for.
Does he like a more front-biased bike, or what were you doing?
More of a balance.
Okay.
So, Jay, compared to other riders, Jay likes corner speed because he comes from a European two-stroke background. So he's very comfortable with corner speed or momentum. Basically, getting the bike as balanced as we can, so that way you can run momentum, which is generally, it's not the philosophy in a leader bike, but if you can adapt that philosophy in with how you should ride a leader bike, then you're fairly successful.
Are there any major changes to the suspension that you anticipate?
I see us changing some of the valving specs, just because we've gone in a direction, and I can see us changing the valving spec a little bit to get that, so we're more in the middle range of what it can do, and not to one end of the spectrum.
So let's talk about the tires for a minute. You're running Pirellis this time, but you will run Dunlops in MotoAmerica. Are there any significant suspension or geometry changes you make for those two different tires?
Yeah, and I mean, it comes back to feel again for what Jayson wants out of them. Yes, they make Pirelli and Dunlop keep getting closer and closer. So I mean, the difference between the two tires, I mean, I'm sure between different riders there's different feel, but Jayson's pretty adaptable to both. It's just trying to keep the feel that he wants out of both tires. So you find out it's a lot of pressure differences is more of what we get into, and then kind of fine tune. Once we find something that's reliable for the tire, then fine tune the suspension on top of that to give basically rider feel.
So you were doing hot pressures before the race.
Yep.
What were those?
Sorry, for Pirelli, we're right about a 36 on the hot side, and then you're at just around 20 for the rear. It just kind of depends how the day goes, and then you fine tune off of that. Because you could set that for in the cold morning, but you know you're going to drop, so you have to make alterations to that so you can keep consistency. Hopefully keep the same pressures throughout the day. The nice thing with Pirellis is they're fairly consistent. They're really consistent. It's a great tire, so we've done that homework. The big deal was that Chuck Walla was seeing if did that change for this bike compared to what we were on before, but it stayed consistent. So that's makes it easier, makes everybody's job easier.
With him dropping, a full second almost, has that affected anything in the tire pressures or no?
Tire pressures you'll see spike a little bit, but you get to a point to where Pirelli's uncomfortable with you going too much further. So yeah, you check the gray areas, but at the end of the day, it's not a tire problem as much as we've gone out of what we tuned the suspension for to begin with. So now you have to retweak the suspension to get it for that new lap time, so that way the bike's comfortable again, and then you can start exploring the edges of the tire and stuff like that. But the tire overall is generally fairly consistent and does pretty well on its own. It's just you have to retune the bike because you're going faster than how you tuned it for to begin with, which is great.
So you're off to COTA for the test,
Yep.
the official test. What do you see yourself doing to the bike between now and then?
So the biggest thing is to verify where we are now. So luckily after the race during our debrief, there was nothing bad at this point. So nothing glaringly bad that we need to change. So it's a good base of where we are. So we'll go to COTA. Like I said, I want to change a valving spec, but we won't do that. We'll ride this bike the way it is first and see what happens at COTA. Do we have the same ailments that we thought we were going to have, or does it change direction and we need to start looking at something else?
Excellent. Well, good luck.
Thank you.